Hello everyone and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah share. We are holding in Mishnah Berurah Chelik Vav. We will be learning today Miras Hashem Daf Ayin Aleph Amid Beis, and we pick up today on the bottom line, actually the last word of Ayin Aleph Amid Aleph in Siman Taf Reish Hey in the Ramah in Sif Aleph. So we have been speaking about the minhag of Shlagig Kapparos on Erev Yom Kippur, and says the Ramah, last word Ayin Aleph Amid Aleph. Ubaycharin b'tarnagolim levanim. We should try to choose white chickens. Al derech shenemar, based on the pasuk that says, Im yu chatoichem kashanim kashel yalbinu. If your averis, if your chatoim are red like scarlet wool, kashel yalbinu, they will become whitened like snow. So the white is a siman to the cleanliness that's brought about by tshuva, and therefore we should try to choose white chickens. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Ois cotton dalid, here on Ayin Aleph Amid Beis. B'tarnagolim levanim, we should try to choose white chickens. Nevertheless, the Chavetz Chaim says in Mikamokaim, Ein lechazer acharei levanim dafka. We should not go searching b'dafka for white chickens, k'moshe noagim anoshim, the way some people have the custom to do, shemahadrin achareim b'yoser, where they think that it's a very big hidur mitzvah to use white chickens, and therefore they go searching for them. V'noistin b'yoiker, and they spend extra money to get white ones. V'hu midarchei ha'amayri, and that's not proper because that would already shmek of darchei ha'amayri, and this is based on a Gemara in Avodah Zarah. There's a Mishnah in Avodah Zarah that says that around the chagim, around the holidays of the non-Jews, you're not allowed to sell them white tarnagolim because they would specifically choose white tarnagolim to use for their Avodah Zarah. So therefore it becomes like a darkei ha'amayri. If the Yidden, when they want to do Kapparos, are going to be searching for white chickens, it looks like an Avodah Zarah based practice. V'choik akum. Ella, rather, the Chavetz Chaim says, what should you do to follow this Ramah? The Ramah said, Ubaychrim b'tarnagolim levanim. Says the Chavetz Chaim, Ella im yavai memela liknois b'mekach shar tarnagolim yiknoisai v'lo yarma klum. What this means is, if you go to the chicken market and you have over there white chickens and black chickens and yellow chickens, and they're all the same price, and you pick up the white chicken, so fine, so you pick up a white chicken and you pay the same amount of money for the white chicken. But don't make a big deal out of getting the white chicken because then already becomes darkei ha'amayri. Kasva achraydim, the achraydim, right? Im ein loy tarnagoil. Let's say you don't have a chicken available at all. You can't find chickens. Yikach avoz, you should take a goose, or sha'ar balechayim, or some other type of animal. She'enam ru'uyim lahakrav al mizbeach. However, it should be a balchay of a type that you cannot use for a carbon on the mizbeach. There are those that say that you can even use fish for kapparos. Now, what's at play over here? First of all, why indeed do you use a chicken lechatchila? Why is a chicken any better than a goose or a duck or anything else? So the truth is, if you take a look at the Dirshu footnote number 17, he brings down over here, as far as the reasoning why lechatchila we use a chicken and not some other type of bird. Kasav HaTorah b'shem tshuvas haga'onim, the Torah writes in the name of the tshuvas haga'onim, shehu mishum she'hatarnagol motzli b'bayis yoser mikol b'hem chayav ha'oif. It's really just basically a practical consideration. People have chickens around in the house. They didn't have geese and they didn't have ducks. So that's why lechatchila it became to use for kapparos chickens. V'oid, she'hatarnagol shmoi gever. A tarnagol is called a gever. Kemuva b'gemara. U'lachein temuras gever b'gever adifo me'ilo yoser. The kreis hagever, we talk about the call of the rooster, kreis hagever, the call of the chicken, the call of the rooster. So gever is used to refer to a chicken, and a gever is a person, is a man. And therefore, the man takes instead of himself, right? We say zeh chalifasi, this is an exchange for me. So we exchange one gever for the other gever. We exchange the tarnagirl that's called a gever for the person who's called a gever. Now, The Chavetz Chaim also said over here that if we don't have a Tarnagoyl, we should take another Balchai, but it should be a Balchai that's not Royal Hakrava al HaMizbeach. What's the reason for that? In Dirshu footnote number 18, it says here, the reason why we do not select an animal that's Royal for Hakrava on the Mizbeach, because of a Magen Avram, they bring down the Magen Avram from Sivkot and Gimel, Shenira Kemagdish Kotcha Bachutz. Because if we're going to take some kind of a behemoth that's royal hakrava, then it really looks like we're being magdish a behemoth. It looks like we're really setting aside being magdish an animal for use as a carbon, and now we're shechting it. It looks like shchute chutz. V'hakresi uplesi haisef levayer. The crazy uplesi adds on shekeven sha'irma zu kapparosi. We're going to say ze chalifasi, ze tmurasi, ze kapparosi. Mashmois l'shaynai. The implication of that language is shehu l'shem carbon oila hamachaper. It sounds mamish like we're bringing a carbon oila for a kapara. V'darma hadavar l'mashakasav ha'shulchan aruch. And this is similar to what the Shulchan Aruch says in Yeridea Siman Hey. Sha'asheichet minei balei chayim ha'ru'uyim lahakrava l'shem carbon abba b'neder u'nudava shchitasai psula kevin shenera hadavar kisheichet katshu b'chutz. The Mechaber says if one were to shecht an animal that's roya for hakrava on the mizbeach, and that shchita is puzzle, if he does it l'shem carbon, somebody takes a cow which is roya hakrava and he shechts it l'shem carbon, so then shchitasa psula kevin shenever hadavar kisheichet kachim b'chutz. Okay, let's go weiter. Now, the Chavetz Chaim ended off Eis Kat and Dalet over here by saying v'yeshaymer mafilu dogim, that there are those that say that you could even use fish for kapparos. What's the even? What's the afilu? Why is there a bigger chiddush that you could use dogim for kapparos than any other animal, than a goose or a duck? I think the answer is because we've already learned previously that the ikar of the kapparos, the ikar part of the kapparos, the minhag, is the shchita. When we take the chicken and we shech the chicken for kapparos, that's when we're thinking to ourselves that we are roi, because of our chatoim, we are roi that everything that's being done to that chicken should be done to us. So the ikar is the shchita. Now there is no shchita on fish. By fish there is no concept of shchita. So therefore it's a big chiddush over here to say that you could use dogim for kapparos. Continues the Ramah at the end of the top line of Ayin Aleph Amud Beis. V'nahagu litein hakaparos la'aniyim. The minhag is to take the chicken that you use for kapparos and to give it to an ani, to give it to a poor person. Or alternately, liftaisan b'mamayin shanaistim la'aniyim. Or if you're not going to take the chicken itself and give the chicken to an ani for his meal, you redeem the chicken. So you go take a look at the market. If chicken is $3.29 a pound, take your kapparos chicken, weigh your kapparos chicken, pay $3.29 a pound, and give that money to the ani, and you'll eat the chicken. Says the Mishnah Berurah in Eis Kat and Hey, v'nahagu litein. Now, first of all, I want to point out that the Ramah says v'nahagu litein. It's a minhag to give the chicken or the value of the chicken to aniyim. It's not an ikar part of the din of kapparos. It's a minhag, the whole thing is a minhag, but there's an additional minhag to go give the chicken or the value of the chicken to aniyim. And we'll see why that's important. V'nahagu litein, k'moisha kasav avachata'ach b'tzedakah peruk. This is based on a pasuk in Daniel, where the pasuk says that you could redeem your chatoim with tzedakah. Now, don't for a minute think that this means that you could do a chet and you could chas v'chalila have in mind that you're going to go and redeem your chet with money. That was a shtick of the Catholic Church, lahavdal elef alfei avdalos. They had something called an indulgence. If you want to go ahead, you want to be over an avera, so you went to the church, you told the church, listen, I'll give you 10% of my crop for the next year, and let me get away with the following sins. That's baloney, that's treif. There's no such thing in the Torah Kedosha. But the pasuk does tell us if somebody did do a chet, and now he wants to gain kapara, he wants an assistance in doing tshuva, so the pasuk says, v'chata'ach b'tzedakah peruk. If you have a chet, you can help unload that chet, you can gain kapara for that chet by giving tzedakah. And therefore, when we're slugging Kapparos, which the whole basis is the whole basis of the minhag is as an aid to tshuva, so we take the money or the chicken and we give it to aniyim. And now the Chafetz Chaim says, "Ube'emes, truthfully, liftoisan toiv yoser." Very interesting. The Chafetz Chaim says it's actually better to redeem the chicken. You eat the chicken and give the value of the chicken to the ani for tzedakah. Why is that better? Shelo yisbaishu ha'aniyim, so that the aniyim should not become embarrassed. Why are the aniyim going to become embarrassed? It explains the Chafetz Chaim. Sheyomar, what the aniyim are going to say is, Zeh nasan avaynoisav al roshai. What is this chicken that I got? Yankel took a chicken. He unloaded his averis onto the chicken. He swung it around his head. He said, Zeh chalifazi, Zeh tmerasi, Zeh kapparasi. So he went ahead and he unloaded his chatarm onto this chicken. Ushlachai elai. And now he's sending me this chicken with all of its averis so that I should eat it. And that's even if he doesn't think so strongly that way, that pshat is that he's getting a chicken loaded with averis, it's definitely a very lowly feeling. This is not a chush of a chicken. This is a chicken that you used for Kapparos, that you used to get rid of your chatam, and now you're sending it to me, I should eat it. You go ahead and eat it. Give me a fresh chicken. So in a chinami, that's what we do. You eat the chicken and give the ani the money. The ani will go to the marketplace, he'll buy himself a nice, fresh, unused, unburdened chicken. Continues the Chafetz Chaim, and he says, on the other hand, if one is certain that the ani is not going to think that way, if one is fairly certain that the ani is not going to be mavuzah by this, you could indeed give them the chickens themselves, because the truth is that sometimes it's better for the ani to receive the chicken than it is for him to receive the funds. Because by giving him the chicken, he has a chicken ready to go into the pot. By giving him money, he has to go out to the marketplace, he has to select the chicken, buy it, he has to shecht it, he has to do the malicha, he has to skin it, everything else. So who needs this? He'd rather have a chicken ready to go in the pot. Ois cotton vav, b'mamain, the Ramah said that you redeem the chicken with money. B'mamain shenoistim la'aniyim, with the money that you're going to give to the ani. Ritzayna loymar, what the Ramah wants to say over here is, sheyarich demei shivoy hakaparoi sheshachatan, you evaluate the value of the chicken that you shechted for kapparos, v'yechalik demei shivoy la'aniyim, and that amount of money you give to the aniyim. And now, you'll see why I mentioned earlier, I pointed out that the Ramah says that it is a minhag to give the chicken or the value of the chicken to the aniyim. Says the Chafetz Chaim here, and he brings this down, if you look in the Sharetzia, and he brings this down from, he doesn't bring down from anybody, he says it's a davar pashut. V'hainu im hayechelis biyadoi. This is only if you're financially able to do this. If you have the means and you could spare the funds and you could give it to the ani, so gesund heit, give it to the ani. But don't think that you have to give it to the ani in order to be yotzeh this inyan of kapparos. No, the ikar minhag of kapparos is to take the chicken and slaughter the chicken and have in mind, like we learned earlier, that what's being done to the chicken should in reality be done to you because of your averis, and that will spur you on to do tshuva. This idea that we give the chicken or the value of the chicken to the aniyim, that is secondary, and it's only im hayechelis biyadai. It's only if you're financially able to do so. The kasva achrayim the achrayim, right? Let's say somebody shlugged kapparos, and now he wants to redeem the chicken with money, and he wants to give that money to the ani, and he has meiser money. Says the Chafetz Chaim, somebody who's redeeming a chicken from kapparos, and he has meiser ksafim, he has meiser money, lo yifte behem. He should not use the meiser money to go ahead and redeem the chicken. That's double dipping. Now what you're doing is you're being yotzeh meiser and kapparos with the same money. Says the Chafetz Chaim here, don't do that. You should rak b'moy shel chulin. You should use regular money to redeem the chicken for kapparos. Okay, now let's continue in the Ramah. Says the Ramah, second line down near the end of the line. V'yesh mekayimos, there are those regions, shenayagin, where they have the minhag, leilech al hakvaros, to go to the Beis Olam, or laharbos b'tzedakah, and to give additional tzedakah on Erev Yom Kippur, v'hakol minhag yafeh, and all of this, these are all good minhagim. Says the Chavetz Chaim over here, ois katan zayin, al hakvaros ulaharbos, they have a minhag to go to the Beis Olam and to be marbet to give tzedakah. If you're giving extra tzedakah on Erev Yom Kippur, you could certainly use the Kapparos money that you use to redeem the chicken. You could use that, and you could give tzedakah with that money. And the Chavetz Chaim says here that when you do go to the Beis Olam on Erev Yom Kippur, you should not be marbe betchinois. You shouldn't say all kinds of tefillas at the Beis Olam. Rak masha meyusad me'akadmonim, only the types of tefillas that we find handed down from the kadmonim. Shaharei ein oimrim hayom tachnun. We know that Erev Yom Kippur is considered a shtickle Yom Tov, and that's why we don't say tachnun. So for the same reason that we don't say tachnun on Erev Yom Kippur, it would also be inappropriate to be marbe b'tachanunim, to say extra tachanunim at the Beis Olam. If we're not saying the tachanunim that are already fixed as part of the tefillah, if we're not saying tachnun, certainly optional extra tachanunim are not appropriate to say on this day, which is considered a little bit of a Yom Tov. Continues the Ramah, and the Ramah says, V'yesh lahasmich shchitas hakaparos miyad la'achar she'achazira yalav. You should shecht the kapparos chicken immediately after you do the ceremony of kapparos. You take the chicken, you swing it around your head, zek kapparasi, zek alivasi, zek murasi. Right away, you should go ahead and you should do the shchita. V'samach yadav alav demus hakarban. And the Ramah says that you should actually do smicha on the head of the chicken. You should put your hands on the chicken, say vidui. You should do smicha on it, similar to what you do by a carbon. He doesn't say here that you should say vidui, but he says v'samach yadav alav. You should go rest your hands on the chicken, demus hakarban, the way we do by a carbon. There are those actually that say you should not do this. Let's see the Mishnah Berurah. Mishnah Berurah ois katan ches v'samach yadav alav. However, there are those that write, and he brings this down from a Taz, that we should refrain from this. We should not do smicha on the chicken. Again, again, this is the same problem we learned about earlier. It looks like you're shechting kachim bachutz. You're making it too similar to a karman, and that we don't want. The acherim kasvu, others write, and he brings this down from the Elia Rabbah and the Graz. She'ein lachish lazeh. You don't have to worry about it looking like kachim b'chutz. Kevin sha'atarna galena royal hamizbeach. Because we said earlier we don't use a balchai that's royal hakrava al hamizbeach, and that's one of the reasons why we're using a chicken. So if we're using a chicken that's not royal hakrava, we don't have to worry that it's going to look like shchitas kachim b'chutz, and therefore you could do smicha like the Ramah said. Now let's go further in the Ramah. By the ice cut and test for the Mishnah Berurah, says the Ramah. Now, by the way, why is it that the Ramah says that right away after you do this smicha, right away you should do the shchita? What's wrong with waiting? I believe the answer to that is because by kachim we have a rule tekef l'smicha shchita, that the shchita is supposed to take place very soon after the smicha, and we're taking it from kachim, and we're saying so too over here by kapparos tekef l'smicha shchita. Finally, let's finish up this Siman. Says the Ramah by the ice cut and test, v'zorkin b'nei me'ehem al hagagois oy b'chotzer. After we shech the tarnagol of the kapparos, we take its innards, we take the intestines, the stomachs of the chicken, and we throw them out on the rooftops or out in the courtyards. In a place where the birds could come and eat them. Why do we do this? Says the Mishnah Berurah cut and test, v'zarkin, shederach hatarnagolim lizayin min hagezel. Because birds often eat from gezel. Birds don't look whose food they're eating, whether they're eating their owner's food or they flew over somebody else's yard and they're going to eat the animal fodder that the person has in his yard for his own birds or his own animals. So tarnagolim, chickens, well, we're talking about chickens who don't fly, but chickens do walk around and scratch and peck and you never know where they're going to get, and therefore oftentimes they eat min hagezel. So what? Says the Chavetz Chaim, u'b'nei ayim, the stomachs, the intestines. Heim hakelim harishonim shemekablim hagezel. The gezel goes into the tarnagol and it goes into the digestive tract of the tarnagol. So the digestive tract is the first place in the body of the tarnagol that gains benefit, so to speak, from the gezel. Lachein, therefore, says the Chavetz Chaim, marchikin asmam mila achlam. We, in turn, refrain from eating the digestive tract of the chicken, kedei litein alibai, so that somebody should put on his mind laharchik min hagezel. This is a way of showing somebody how far removed we have to be from gezel. Since the digestive tract of the chicken is the first part of the chicken that had hana from the gezel, we don't want to go near it. We want to take it, we want to throw it down into the chutzner, or we want to throw it on the rooftops and throw it to the birds, let the birds eat it. But we want to be marchik min hagezel as much as possible. V'gam, and another reason, mishum rachmonios, kishem shemarachem al abrios, we want to show the Rebbeinu Shalom that we have rachmanos on the brios. We throw these things which really we could eat. Instead, we throw them out in the courtyard to give them to the birds so that the birds should have food. And therefore, kishem shemarachem al abrios lefarnasan, the same way we take care of the birds, yirachmu alav min hashamayim, in shamayim, they should have rachmanos on us and make sure that we have what we need. That concludes Siman Taf Reish Hey. Now let's move on to Siman Taf Reif Vav. Sheyafayes Adam Chaveroi be'erev Yom Kippurim. The need, and actually we're going to see the chiv, to appease your friend. If you did something wrong to your friend over the course of the year, you have a chiv to go mimafayes him. You have to go ask him mechila. You have to appease him be'erev Yom Kippurim u'bay dalet seifim. And here we have 4 seifim. Says the Mechaber Sif Aleph. Averi shebein adam lechaveroi. If somebody has an avera in his hands, it's an avera shebein adam lechaveroi. It's between him and the Rebbeinu Shalom. He did something that he wasn't allowed to do, but there's no victim. It's only between him and the Rebbeinu Shalom. Ein Yom Kippur. I'm sorry, wrong way. Avera shebein adam lechaveroi. An avera that's between you and your friend. An avera shebein adam lamakayim, that's between you and God. That's between you and the Rebbeinu Shalom. You went ahead, chas v'chalila, you ate ma'achalois asurais, you ate tray for food, that's between you and the Rebbeinu Shalom. That's an avera shebein adam lamakayim. You come on Yom Kippur, you say vidui, you do tshuva, you have Kabbalah ala osid, charata, vidui, Kabbalah ala osid. The Rebbeinu Shalom is makabel your tshuva, and Yom Kippur is mechaper. That's bein adam lamakayim. But averi shebein adam lechaveroi, averis that are between you and your friend. You went and you spoke lashon hara on somebody, so you did an avera. You did something against your friend. Ein Yom Kippurim mechaper. Yom Kippurim is not going to gain you kapara for that avera. Ad sheyafayasenu, until you first go and appease him. You ask him for mechila, and you gain forgiveness from him. Then Yom Kippur could finish the job. But without that mechila from your friend, Yom Kippur is not going to be mechaper you. And the truth is, we learned this out from a pasuk. The pasuk says in reference to Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, Mikol chatoisechem lifnei Hashem titaru. On Yom Kippur, you will gain kapara mikol chatoisechem from all your averis lifnei Hashem. You get kapara for the averis that are between you and Hashem. That's bein adam l'makayim, but not bein adam l'chaveroi. Bein adam l'chaveroi, Yom Kippur is not going to do the job unless you first gain mechila. Continues the Mechaber, va'afilu lo hiknitoi ela b'dvarim. Even if you only aggravated somebody with words, you didn't punch him and give him a black and blue mark, you didn't steal $10 from him, all you did was you teased him, you insulted him, so all you did was you aggravated him with your words. Tzarech lefaisai. You have to go appease him and you have to go gain mechila from him. Says the Mishnah Berurah is Cotton Aleph. The gam bazeh avar al iser da'inas dvarim. First of all, the Chavetz Chaim wants you to know that this that the Mechaber says, va'afilu lo yiknita ela b'dvarim, if all you did was insult him, all you did was bother him with words, the Mechaber says you still need to ask mechila. Explains the Chavetz Chaim, the reason for that is because there's an iser daraisa of da'inas dvarim. There's an iser daraisa of offending somebody with words. It's a pasuk in Parshas Bahar, lo yisoinu ishes amisai. You're not allowed to do a nos dvarim. A nos dvarim is a daraisa, the same way gezel is a daraisa. Continues the Chavetz Chaim. V'hinei. And I think this Chavetz Chaim here is going to change your perspective a little bit on asking mechila on Erev Yom Kippur. V'hinei. What's the chiddush over here? The Chavetz Chaim is asking, what's the chiddush of the mechaber? The mechaber is telling me that on Erev Yom Kippur, you have to go ask mechila from somebody if you did something to them. Says the Chavetz Chaim, I don't understand. That's not a chiyuv on Erev Yom Kippur. That's a chiyuv every day. You always have a chiyuv to go be mefayis and appease somebody who you did something to. It's not a chiddush that you have as a chiyuv on Erev Yom Kippur. Explains the Chavetz Chaim, there is a difference between Erev Yom Kippur and the rest of the year. Nevertheless, the rest of the year, im ein loy pnai, if somebody doesn't have time to go ahead and ask somebody mechila. The person he needs to ask mechila maybe lives 100 miles away, and all he has is a horse and buggy to get there. So if a person doesn't have time, he doesn't have the easy ability to go ask mechila, he could wait for another day. I don't have to ask mechila today, I'll ask mechila tomorrow. Aval be'erev Yom Kippurim. But once you hit Erev Yom Kippur, now you can't postpone it anymore. Why not? Because mechuyev l'sakein hakoil. Because on Erev Yom Kippur you have a chiyuv. You understand, Rabbi Isai? This is not optional. It's not voluntary. I think a lot of people think that it's optional. If I want to go ask my Chavra Mechila, I'll ask him Mechila. I want to ask him Mechila because I don't want the sword of Damocles. I don't want this hanging over my head on Erev Yom Kippur. I don't want to go into the Yom Adin with somebody having a richtige taina on me. So I want to unload the taina, I'll go ask him Mechila. Says the Chavetz Chaim, no. Aval be'erev Yom Kippur mechuyev l'saken hakoil. On Erev Yom Kippur, you're mechuyev to go ask mechila and do tshuva on what you did to that person. Because you have a chiyuv. You hear this? You have a chiyuv on Erev Yom Kippur to cleanse yourself of all of your chatoim. What's that chiyuv based on? Kidiksiv, like the pasuk says in Yom Kippur, Ki bayoyim hazeh yechaper aleichem, because on this day the Rebbeinu Shalom will give you kapara, mikol chatoiseichem lifnei Hashem titaru. From all of your chatoim, you will become purified. So you have a chiyuv. This pasuk gives you a chiyuv asay. You have a chiyuv to go cleanse yourself of all of your averis. So it's not optional. I know I spoke lashon hara on him. Yeah, I would like to unload it. I'd like to get it off my head before Yom Adin. But maybe you don't have the guts. Maybe you're too embarrassed to go ask. All right, so no, if I'm too embarrassed, I won't do it. I'll deal with it another time. No, it's not optional. You have a chiyuv of mikol chateisechem lifnei Hashem titaru, and in the beautiful words of the Chavetz Chaim, mechuyev l'saken hakoil. You are mechuyev to be misaken all of your averis, kedei sheyitar mikol aveinaisav, so that you should have kapara from all of your averis. Kidiksiv kivayom ezeh yichaper aleichem mikol chateisechem. Now I see I marked over here in my Mishnah Berurah Dirshu footnote number 5. I don't even remember what it says. Oh, yeah. He brings down a famous lavush. Tam noisav kasva HaTorah lavush. The Torah and the lavush give another reason why it's so important to do this on Erev Yom Kippur. Kedei sheyeh leiv Yisrael shalom echad im chaveroi. Because going into Yom Kippur, we want to make sure that Gans Klal Yisrael is b'shalom with each other. So that the Satan cannot chas v'shalom be mekatrig on Klal Yisrael. And this way the Satan will come to the Rebbeinu Shalom and say, that Klal Yisrael is similar to the Malachei Hashares, that there's shalom, this peace amongst Klal Yisrael the same way there is amongst the Malachei Hashares. Okay, continues the Mishnah Berurah here, a nice cut in Aleph. Certainly if somebody has stolen funds or stolen property that belongs to somebody else, or money that he has from ripping somebody off, from overcharging, or anything else that has to do with finances, if you have money improperly in your hands that belongs to somebody else, you have to make sure to repair this, to give it back. And says the Chavetz Chaim in the brackets here, that short little break over there, but the recording got interrupted, so I'm just going to go back a couple of seconds over here. We were here on Ayin Aleph Amid Beis. We're in Mishnah Berurah Ois Katan Aleph, and we're talking about Gezel. So we're 4 lines down in Ois Katan Aleph by the brackets. And the Chavetz Chaim says that Gezel, Tezehu hamekatreg hagadol al ha'adam. This is the greatest prosecutor against a person on Yom Adin. K'moshe Amru Chazal, like Chazal say in Medrash Rabbah, Sa'ah molei avonos. If somebody chas v'chalila has a large measure of averis in his hands, Asa molei avonos, mi mekatreg. Who is the one that's going to come be the prosecutor? Gezel mekatreg barosh. The Medrash says that Gezel is the one that's going to come first. So you see how much we have to distance ourselves from Gezel and do tshuva on any kind of Gezel. Let's say somebody has money in his hands and he knows that it's very possible that his friend has a valid claim against that money. And maybe his friend doesn't even know. His friend doesn't realize that you have $1,000 of his that you got in a business transaction or whatever it is, and in reality your friend has a very reasonable claim against you for that money, but he doesn't know. Yoidienu, you should let him know. Even though he doesn't know that he has any claim against you, you should make sure to let him know that he has a claim. You should bring it in front of a paisik, you should bring it to a rav, and you should tudurch the inyan b'shleimus, ube'emes, and truthfully, beloy sheker, without any falsehood, v'lishal hayachli hisnahig, and ask a moira tzedek what you should do. Kloloi shel davar, the great rule is, the Chavetz Chaim says, kol davar shebemamayin, anything that has to do with finances, lo yismaich al hara'asai. Don't rely on your own judgment. Ki ha-yetzahara yesh lo yeterim harbe, because the yetzahara will find a way for you to be moira heter. So don't trust your own instincts. If there's a shaila, bring it in front of a moira tzedek. But we see over here from this Chavetz Chaim, from this Mishnah Berurah, how seriously and stringently we have to treat any kind of question of gezel. Anything that you have in your hand that you might not really be entitled to, you have to make sure to cleanse yourself of that, because that's the first mekatreg, that's the first prosecutor that's going to be working against you, chas v'chalila, up in Shamayim. Ois Katan Beis, the Mechaber said that even if you're only maktit somebody b'dvarim tzarich lefaisa, you have to appease him. Says the Mishnah Berurah v'nachain, and it is proper, sheyelech ba'atzmai elav, that you should go on your own to go appease your friend. V'lo yishlach tchila emtzoi sheyiratza lekabel piyusim. Don't go ahead initially and send a middleman. This is something that you really should do on your own. V'em kasha alav leilech ba'atzmai tchila, if you just simply can't bring yourself to do it, oy sheyedeh sheyosek karav appease al yedei ish emtzoi sheyizavek. Excuse me. Or if you know, or if you know, sheyoser karov, that it is much more possible, appease, it'll be much easier to gain that appeasement, al yedei ishem tzoi, through the work of a middleman, sheyisavech beinehem, who will act as a middleman between you, then yochalasais al yedei tzoi, then you can use a middleman. The bottom line is we want you to accomplish gaining the mechila. Initially, it's better you should do it on your own. If you can't do it on your own, or you know that it won't work if you do it on your own, it'll come about quicker and easier, faster if you do it through a middleman, then you could use a middleman. Okay, let's go a little weiter here in the Mechaber. Let's say you do go ask your chaver for mechila, and he's not ready. He's not mekabel the pius. He doesn't become appeased easily. So the first time you went to him, he's not mekabel. Says the Mechaber, Yachzer v'yelech pam shniya u'shlishis, you should go back again a second time and a third time. Ubechal pam yikach imay shloisha anoshim, and each time you should bring 3 people together with you. V'hem einam ispayis b'shalish pa'amim, and if after going to him and approaching him 3 times he's not mekabel, and he doesn't give you mechila, eino izakok loi, then you are no longer responsible to try and get mechila from him. Says the Ramah, Miu, however, if you tried 3 times and you couldn't get mechila, you should pull together a minyan and you should give haidah, you should let it be known in front of 10 people that you tried to get mechila from Pliny 3 times properly and he wasn't willing to grant you mechila. That way it will become known that the fight is not on your side, that you did everything that you could. And it's important to be idea that to people. People shouldn't be choshed you. Okay, now let's see the Mishnah Berurah here. Says the Mishnah Berurah is cut in Gimel. Yachzor v'yelech, you should go 3 times. Interesting, the Chavetz Chaim says, it's not just a question of going 3 times. V'yafaisenu b'chol pam b'min ritzoy acher. Each time that you go, you should try to be meratzah him in a different way. And this, I believe, is taken from Yosef HaTzadik together with his brothers. We know at the end of Parshas Vayechi, the Torah Kedosha tells us that the Ache Yosef, the Shiftei Ka, came to Yosef HaTzadik to ask him for mechila. And if you take a look at the pasuk over there, it says, Vayiru Ache Yosef Kimei Saviem, the brothers of Yosef saw that Yaakov Avinu had died. Vayomru, and they said, Lu Yistamenu Yosef, perhaps Yosef will hate us. V'hashev Yoshev Lanu, and he will give back to us all the evil that we did to him. So they came to Yosef and they said, Yosef. So they should say to Yosef, Ana, please, Sana, please forgive, Pesha Achecha, the sins of your brothers, V'chatasam Kira Gemalucha, Va'ata, and now, Sana, Lepesha Avdei Avicha. Forgive now the sins of the servants of the God of your father. So they gave 3 different types of ritzui. They said Ana, they said Sana, and then again they said Va'ata Sana. So 3 times they tried to be mefayis. Okay. Says the Mishnah Berurah weiter. We're here in Ois Katan Gimel. Obishas bakashas mechila. When you do ask mechila, tzarich lefaret mashachata lechaveroi. You have to spell out what it is that you're asking mechila for. You have to state what it is that you did that you're asking mechila for. Unless it's a case where if you tell your friend, your chaver, what you did to him, he's going to become embarrassed. Then it's better not. Somebody who asks mechila just in a general way from a rabbim, if somebody comes to 10 people and says, will all 10 of you be meichel me? Meantime, he knows that 9 of them he doesn't know from beans, but he knows he said Lashon Hara on one of them. That's not effective. If you know that you said Lashon Hara on Ruvain, you have to go to Ruvain and ask Ruvain for mechila on the Lashon Hara that you said. If the person does not become appeased after you approach him 3 times, meaning that you approached him 3 times properly, each time with 3 people, etc., etc., then you're no longer responsible to him to gain his mechila. But certainly if you still want to keep on approaching him, you may. As long as it's not going to become a bezayin HaTorah. Ayin Beis Amud Aleph, Mishnah Berurah is cut in Vav. The Ramah said that if you can't get mechila, so ultimately you should approach him in front of 10 people, not approach him. You should state in front of 10 people. You should know that I went to Pliny to ask him for mechila 3 times, so that it should become known, it should be mefursim, that the problem is not on your side, that you did everything that you could, and you were not able to gain his mechila. Okay, thank you so much for joining me for limud HaTorah. The schus of limud HaTorah should be megan against Klal Yisrael. The Rebbeinu Shalom should send Yeshua's refuahs and parnasa to all those in need. And we should be zoichet to see the Bias Goel Tzedek b'mehera v'yameinu. Amen. Be well.